Welcome to Thursday Bread Baking, another master class for you, my dear. I'm so excited for today. It's fall time. We have the harvest moon on top of this beautiful fire burning ring eclipse happening this weekend. Can you imagine a better time to get baking? Homemade bread, the life blood, the life food of our ancestors for thousands and thousands of years. That bread and butter that has held us through thick and thin, that has started riots across nations and has kept bellies filled for generations. What an amazing time of year. And I'm giving you the tools to make it all happen. Well, my dear, stick with me to the end because I have an exciting announcement to make for you. So stay with me. And I know we just got started. Give me half a second. I gotta go take care of my daughter really fast. One second. All right, my dear. So, if this is the first time we have met, my name is Crystal. I am the proud co-owner and founder of Milled Artistry. I am your resident home baker, coach, mindset coach, and jewelry maker, designer, woodworker, magic weaving country witch, all around just a good old country gal that loves history, loves styling up a lifestyle and the person to help bring out the most amazing part of you, which just happens to be your true authentic self. Because let me let you in on a secret. Your authentic self is your superpower. Did you know that? Your authentic self, no matter what it is, your authentic heart, your authentic voice, your authentic being is your superpower. And I want to help bring it out in you and let that inner child in you free so that you can create your truest, authentic dream life and change everything that you know to something a little more blissful, a little more happy, a little more peaceful, and above all, a life, a world where there's gratitude and love abound. Okay? So, I am also the mom of 5 kids, and I have 2 that are stay at home with me still. So, if I have to step away for just a second, or as like with today, I got some sleepy kids that are a little on the ornery side. So I may have to step away and be a mom for a minute. Because that's just the way lives go, okay? If this first life you've ever, like the first live, not life, the first live you've ever joined me in, let me grab my seat. Please be aware that my children do have to come first. So, today, let's talk about the history. Fall is all about celebrating our ancestors. It is about celebrating the transitional moments in our life. It's about preparing for the coming winter and reaping the rewards of all that summertime effort as you harvest all the abundance of what you've grown from the seeds that you planted in the early spring are now fully ripe, abundantly plump, and ready to fill your pantry with, regardless of what that pantry may be, and regardless of what those seeds that you sowed actually were. My dear, today we're talking about bread, but what you may not know is the history of bread affects so much more than just baking. It's far more than just a kitchen. Bread baking now my tongue's not working. Bread baking is a part of our history. It is a part of bringing families together, friends together. It's about filling your belly with all that beautiful love and comfort. And it is all about creating magic. Now, magic, I talk about magic all the time, but what you may not realize is that magic exists in everything. It's everywhere. However, it just depends on how you're willing to look at it. When you see the first snow falling, as it is actually outside right now, it's snowing, guys. Do you see that as like this massive blow that you haven't gotten everything done, that this is a source of panic and anxiety to you of, I'm not ready yet? Ellie, thank you. Or do you see it as magic falling from the sky? The beautiful magic of natural science. Snow is stunningly beautiful, and it is magical. It puts everything to sleep. It changes and it coats the ground outside and transforms the world that we know. That's magic, my friend. Just like in spring, as those first, like everything is muddy, it's a mess, and those first sprigs of life begin to pop from the ground. That's magic too. Watching all of your gardens grow, it's magic. There's magic in everything, including you, honey. So, bread baking. As far as it goes with our ancestors, do you know how long bread baking has actually been around? Do you actually know how long we have been baking bread? Bread baking is generally accepted to have begun about 10,000. Let me double check my notes before I continue on. Dates back to approximately 10,000 BC. That's a long time ago. But did you know that there has actually been archaeological evidence found in recent years that challenges that 10,000 year mark? It's true. In fact, the oldest recorded bread found to this day, charred bread, dates to 14,000 BC from a Neolithic tribe. Neolithic man was baking bread 14,000 years ago. Now see, that trumps this idea that first men were hunter-gatherers, then farmers, then bakers, when in fact they were bakers, well, they were hunter-gatherers as well. The art of baking bread is the first form of baking that's existed. Bread has been the life need source for mankind for thousands of years. Thousands of years. Bread is such a comfort food. It is so ingrained in our ancestral blood, into our DNA, and into our diet, that to remove it actually causes complications most of the time. And let's face it, no matter how bad of a day you've had, no matter how bad that day's been, someone bakes you up some fresh homemade bread, and you come in and you smell that gorgeous aroma rising from that bread. Oh, honey, 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 honey. It lifts the spirit, it lifts the soul. It puts a smile on your face. The nearest thing I can compare it to as to how it lifts you up is finding those little flecks of gold in your gold pan. So if you don't know, I'm also a prospector and I love gold panning. But bread really is the gold of mankind's diet. And for thousands of years, for many, it was secret. The art of making bread was only known by the few. Only by the few. It went from being common practice to the revered secret. And then once again, back to the common practice as we begin to do it again. There for a long time, buying it from the store has been the norm. And that art of the knowledge of how to bake bread was lost. And our diets, our health began to suffer. So I hope you will join me as I welcome you in to learning how to bake bread again with your own two hands. Minimal tools. All you need is a baking bowl, a pan to bake it on, a working oven, 2 hands, and the willingness to try. Along with, of course, your ingredients. But honestly, real traditional bread, all you need is a little bit of salt, some flour, some water, and a leavening agent. That's it. You need nothing else. That's pretty basic. Pretty basic. And you can make a hearty meal from that. You can make the most gorgeous desserts from that. Honey, 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 that's amazing. To take something that you can serve with your dinner, you can make a full meal out of it. You can transform your leftovers into yummy desserts such as bread pudding to serve at celebrations or as for birthdays. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. 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 So, bread baking is so ingrained in, well, having bread, let's put it this way. Having bread in our diets is so ingrained into us that not only was Neolithic man baking bread, but by 6000 BC, the ancient Egyptians and the Sumerians were also beginning to make leavened bread. The ancient Egyptians were making sourdough at that time. That's pretty amazing. The first written record of bread dates back to 6000 BC. Wow. The art of making bread right along the side of making beer. Yes, they go hand in hand because the easiest way to make bread is actually from the yeast that comes from beer. And as beer was the main source of drink back in the day, because many places their water wasn't safe to actually just drink. So they made beer, which was fermented and had all the alcohol in it to kill off all them nasty little things that you didn't want to be eating that made you sick. Taking the byproduct, taking that beautiful froth off the top, and you made the most spectacularly, uniquely flavored bread ever. Yum. Yum, yum, yum. Bread is so ingrained that even during the early colonial days here in the Americas, and even back over in Europe, the average person's diet consisted of a quarter loaf of bread morning with maybe a little bit of butter, a quarter loaf of bread with maybe a little bit of meat and some root vegetables. And then dinner a quarter loaf of bread with a little bit of cheese. Now, to give you a little bit of reference, a quarter loaf of bread back then varied depending on the house that you lived in and what your economic standards were. So for your more wealthy families, a quarter loaf of bread was about a half a pound. So your average loaf, a wheaten loaf, as it was considered back then, or a white loaf, was 2 pounds, okay? Which is pretty close to the average size loaf that we make today. 2 pound loaf, and you had a fourth of that for every single meal. Whereas your more common folk, your poorer class, usually had household bread, which was on average a 4 pound loaf. Your household bread, generally that was your main diet. Very seldom did you have anything extra. In fact, your fruits and your veggies generally weren't even served with your meals. And even when they were, it was only during what we consider lunchtime now, which was supper for them. Your fruits and your veggies were something generally that you just snacked on throughout the day, with the exception of root garden goods or foraged root garden goods. Those would have gone along with your supper at lunchtime. So, it's pretty amazing how history has, our history is literally written with bread. Bread bakers have always been such an important part that even in the early days, it was not uncommon for them to get in front of the entire town to have this great big gathering of everyone around when they first went to open their shop, and they gave them the bread baker's oath to always show up and to serve. Because if the bread baker failed on their bread for even one day, that meant everyone went hungry. And that was unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. If it was not to the pristine quality, it did not go up to the standards, then that baker was no good, and they had failed their oath to the town. The baker depended on the farmer, but the farmer depended on the baker in order to have the strength, the energy, and the nourishment in order to continue to farm. Everyone in the community depended on the baker to show up every day and to bake their bread with pristine precision. And I'll tell you what, old-time fashion baking like they did way back in the day, that's some hard work. They generally worked in a trough, a bread trough, that was on average 3 to 4 feet long and 2 feet deep. And they would fill that whole thing full with dough as they kneaded it. Yes, honey. Yes, you may. So, we're having some yummy apple juice in celebration of harvest. My daughter loves it. Loves it. Okay, so it's really interesting to watch old documentaries on how bread baking was done. I love it personally. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And it is not uncommon in my household for us to do reenactments in a modern way, which is one of the fun parts about doing the fall time mini course that's coming available. Doors are opening for enrollment this weekend in honor of the harvest moon and that amazing fire burning eclipse happening on Saturday. Oh my God. I can't think of a better way to bring it in. Anyway, when you get watching those old documentaries, so if you're a history fanatic like I am, like you'll totally understand what I mean. It's very interesting to see the different dynamics. And I love reenacting it because not only is it a sense of fun, it's a change from the ordinary, mundane, every life. It mixes things up, and it's this beautiful way of celebrating and just enjoying the experience. But it also brings about this, it brings about a respect that you didn't have before when you do it yourself. It's one thing to watch somebody else do it. It's a whole nother thing to do it. So in the fall time mini bread course, no, I'm not asking you to full reenact it. Now, yes, I am actually dressed up. I am in more traditional costumes with a modern kind of steampunk little flair, because that's just my own personal authentic style. And I love that. I love that sassy, bold, you know, rebellious little, you know, kind of style. But I would love if you actually got dressed up with me, because I would love to see your pictures. I think that would just be amazing. It's just fun. Okay? And that's the point. It's about having fun, because fall time is about having fun. It's about letting your inner child out to just play and enjoy the changing of the seasons. Fall time is all about making those transitions. Eclipses also represent transition. What an amazing time to have an eclipse than we're having this weekend. I'm so excited. Oh! Okay. So, the type of breads that you had, it did vary across the world depending on your location and the grains that you had. So here in the Americas, it was more common. Sorry, I just had a message pop up. Okay, so here in the Americas, it was more common to have your flat cornbread meals. And those are great. And then come the early turn of the century, we also discovered raising agents such as baking soda. But did you know there were other leavening agents that were used by our pioneer ancestors right here out in the West, such as antelope horn and hooves on my tongue. Hooves were also used as leavening agents out here in the West during like the Wild West kind of era, because they didn't have access to things such as baking soda and yeast, with the exception of wild yeast or a sourdough yeast starter, sometimes were a little hard to come by. So anyone that did sourdough way back during the Wild West times, their sourdough was starter that had been handed down for generations. In fact, when you got married, one of the most common gifts was sourdough starter. Because they knew, as a newly married couple, going off, starting your own home and family, you had to have bread. And starting your own wild yeast sourdough starter takes a long time. And those old, and the newer the yeast, the less power it had in it. Yeah. So old yeasts were far weaker than what we are accustomed to this day. We just go down to the store, grab up a packet or a block. So if you bake with me, I always am going to suggest getting bulk yeast. It allows you better control over the amount of yeast. And like when you got yucky weather outside, you can easily bump that up just a touch and still have your bread pull out successfully every time. But back then, they didn't have lab-grown yeast. No. They had to do the work of brewing their own beer in order to take that foamy yeast froth off the top. They had to store dried up sourdough uncooked balls to be broke down to start their beer the next time, or to start their bread. That was the original yeast starter packets. It was dried sourdough, raw sourdough, that had sometimes been stored for up to years before being used. And crumbling it all up, soaking it in the water, and finally, like about 12 hours later on average, you finally got to see all that bubbly frothiness on top. Now, it was often covered to keep out, other things getting in there. But if that yeast was getting really old or had been exposed to, some extreme temperatures, or it hadn't been the best yeast sourdough starter to begin with, they would often also leave the towel off or the board off, whatever they covered their bowl with at the time, so that they could catch the wild yeast that's floating through the air. So you may not know this, but wild yeast is everywhere. It's on us. It's on our clothes. It's on the foods that we bring into our home. It's on the grass outside. Have you ever picked up a wild apple off the tree? Just pop. And ever noticed there was just a little white powder on that apple? Or maybe in your garden. Now, as a gardener, honestly, most of the time you hate that white powder, because that's not good for most gardens, depending on what you're growing. However, that white powder is actually wild yeast that has been gathering and collecting on top of your vegetables outside or on your wheat. Wild yeast is everywhere. However, it is not nearly as potent as to what we're accustomed to using today in our yeast breads. Okay? Sourdough is a type of yeast bread. All right? It just is. But it is far more potent where it has been aged, it's been processed. You have, removed your discard and you've added additional fresh flour to that. Continuously, always on top of that sourdough. Honey, that is far more potent than your wild yeast that grows outside. The history of bread is amazing, and it has fed us for thousands and thousands of years. In fact, even during the peak of society in the old days, such as colonial times, or even the Victorian era, if you didn't have bread on the table, it didn't matter how grand of a feast had been laid out, how many delicate, decadent sweets were out there, all the delicious meats and the fruits and the veggies and all those delicious berries and everything else that may have been served at that grand feast. If you didn't have bread on that table, honey, it was a failure. And you were mocked, you were ridiculed, and it was tore to pieces. All because you did not have a single loaf of bread on your table. Because bread was that essentially important in our diets for our ancestors, and it still is today. Still is today. We eat an immense amount of bread every year, and it is incredible to see how, even though this is something that began 14,000 years ago with Neolithic hunter-gathering men and women, still exists as a key component to our lives and to our diets today. Like, damn. But unfortunately, as is the case with history, the knowledge and the arts of baking bread are being lost. And it has only really been in recent years that the teaching of bread baking has become a bigger thing. It used to be, it was only taught from mother to child. That's how it used to be. And when, say, that daughter didn't want to cook, didn't want to bake, that knowledge got lost. And it happened more and more and more and more. Now, we're seeing a reverse of that. As People are turning back to their golden roots, turning back to the earth and old traditional ways, and relearning old traditional arts, such as the art of bread baking. And it is amazing to see. Now, I'm not going to lie. I grew up in a home where we had fresh baked rolls almost daily with our dinner. And as a kid, I had one job. My job was to roll the dough, to roll and shape those rolls. That was it. That is the only part of bread baking I knew how to do. I knew I had to raise, and then we shaped it, and then I had to raise again, went into the oven. I didn't know how to actually do the process. In fact, I taught myself how to do it some 17 to 18 years ago at this point. And I did that because of finances. And I did that because I am a traditional soul. I love history. I love creating things with my own hands. And I love to be able to support my family through the art that I'm able to create with nothing more than this. And you can learn how to do it too. And I would love to make it so much more easy for you than it was for me. Yeah, I'm just saying. Yeah. So, bread baking is at the key components of mankind. It is a key component in our diet still to this day. And depending on where you lived, the type of breads that you made varied greatly. Here in the Americas, both North and South Americas, it was more traditionally cornbread because that's the grain that we had. Okay? Now say over in Europe, it was rice cakes because rice was the grain that they had. And more European and even down into Africa, it was more wheat-based. Now that varies dramatically. And then even in South America areas, bean breads were very common too. And after the colonial period and everyone coming over to the New World, bean breads become more commonplace in common households, even here in America, because beans often were cheaper, they were easy to grow, and they could replace some of those more expensive wheats, which at the time were more imported than grown here in the States. So bean breads, even pea bread, this is even where you find apple bread coming into fruition, because apples can be used as a replacer in your breads, and it's amazing. It's absolutely beautiful and amazing. Apples, bananas, even pumpkin and squash. These are all replacers for whole wheats in your bread because they were cheap, readily available, and could easily be added to your breads to cut down the price when things were really, really, really hard. And let's admit it, we're kind of facing that today, right? Right? So I love a good applesauce honey replacer in my breads. For one, it actually helps cut down the amount of baking fats that goes into your bread. It can also be used as a replacer for the sweeteners in your breads too. Now, a word of caution. Applesauce does not replace all sugars in all breads or the fats that go into all breads. Just a smidgen of it. But it can also be used to replace the wheat itself. Now, I give you that little word of warning because if you are going to make such as a banana bread or a pumpkin bread, now not a yeast bread, these are baking soda breads. These are quick breads and they're pretty gooey. They're pretty close to the texture of a cake when you pour them into the pan. However, if you try to replace the sweeteners and the fats, those high amount of fats that are in those type of breads, with extra bananas and applesauce, you're going to have a not so sweet bread. It's going to be far more hearty, and it's hard to explain the taste. It's not bad, but it's awful bland. And when you're expecting a sweet bread and it comes out just a hint of sweetness, it's a little hard to wrap your brain around. It just is. It just is what it is, honey. So anyway, y'all, we are celebrating fall time. We are celebrating the harvest moon. We are celebrating our ancestors. And my daughters are loving their little witch sticks that we made yesterday while we were doing their preschool stuff here at home. What do you think? Do you like it? All right. So I am about to open the doors for the first time ever on our brand new fall time mini bread course. All about celebrating our ancestors, all about having fun, getting into costume, celebrating the month of October and November, celebrating the harvest, celebrating the change of the seasons, and bringing family and friends together. And letting that inner child in you come out and play for a little while and just enjoy the simpler things in life. Val, shut the door. Oh. Sorry. So in this mini course, I'm going to teach you how to make several different yeast breads and quick breads, because I want you to have all those beautiful traditional breads and something that's easy to make in your modern day kitchen that you can use for celebrating different holidays, birthdays. Just put something special out on the table just because, but also fill your cupboards with delicious, wholesome, fresh, homemade breads that lifts the heart, lifts the spirits. It gives you that beautiful peace and zen, and it fills that belly oh so yummily well. Delicious and delectable. And when you make it from home, you don't have to worry about all those preservatives. You don't have to worry about all those extras. You can add as many additional ingredients as you want, or you can keep it as simple and basic as you want. So simple that all you have is water, salt, and flour, along with your yeast. And that's pretty amazing too. So I encourage you to have all the fun in the world with this. So I'm only opening the doors for a limited time for enrollment. I want you to stay tuned.
Okay, Dad.
Because I'm going to let you know when those doors are open. But if you want to get in to being first access into the course, honey, told you only limited enrollments being taken for this. So if you want to make sure that you save your seat to get in, shoot me a message. Straight up, shoot me a message. DM me that you want. So fall time early access. That's what you need to message me, okay? Fall time early access. And I will send you the direct links the moment the doors open so that you can get in, snag your seat, save it, gobble up all those goodies, have a little fun, and bake side by side with me as we bring in the fall and the changing of the seasons. Oh, so much fun. So much fun. So if you want to get in on that, this is the only time I will ever offer it for this price. Brand new course. Just finished recording it. It is so much fun, guys. And that is the whole point of this course. It's to have fun, because fall time is all about fun and celebrating family and friends. That's exactly what we're going to do in this course. So you can go ahead and get all dressed up, gussied up, do whatever you want, side by side with me. Or you can just show up as you are, and that is perfectly okay, because I want you to be comfortable doing it. But the point is to have fun, while also learning and keeping alive that old history of our ancestors in a slightly modern way. So you don't have to go build yourself an earth oven or anything along those lines. I'm going to show you how to do it in your own oven here at home with modern temperatures and modern use. Pretty cool, right? Pretty cool, right? So I'm from the countryside, so these breads are more country inspired from our pioneer ancestors around these areas, with recipes that have been handed down with generations and adapted to fit modern baking and our modern equipment. That, honey, is pretty amazing too. Where you can learn how to make beautiful bread just like this. Look at that. This was so much prettier before it was sliced into, but look how pretty that is. Now, let me point something out. This is a couple days. So I baked this, 2 days ago? Yeah, about 2 days ago. So when I first baked this, it had that beautiful look and texture and spring and all the wonderful things like you would have from a store-bought bread. 2 days old, this being a homemade bread with no preservatives or anything in it, it gets a texture like this. Yeah, but I'll tell you what, this is absolutely delicious. Absolutely delicious. And I'm going to teach you how to do it in our fall time mini course so that you can slice it up and have all those amazing yumminess that goes along with baking homemade bread. Because this is absolutely delicious. It's comforting and it raises the spirits, the heart, and all the fun things. It brings families together, and it's this beautiful opportunity that you can bake side by side with your family if you so choose to. That teaches them the skills, and it also creates these beautiful moments in our lives, which is amazing fun. So I could be offering this course of over $200. But you know what? I understand how hard economic times are right now. And baking bread, when I first began, was one of the ways that I overcome the economic hardships that we were facing back then. During the housing crisis and all of the things, like the raising housing market and then the sudden crash. Those high interest rates and all the things that went along with it. As a new family with little babes at home, working full-time jobs, limited time available to even sit and relax, baking homemade bread was one of the things that I used when I first started baking and learning how to through lots and lots and lots and lots of trial and error. Lots of trial and error, was one of the things that actually brought me some comfort and some zen. It was a form of meditation for me. It was a way of reconnecting back to the earth and to my ancestral roots. And I didn't realize how much I needed that during those crazy hectic times. But it also helped cut my grocery bill dramatically. So we make homemade lunches here at my house. And we have really my entire married life. So we're talking over 20 years, y'all. We've always done homemade lunches, which requires a whole lot of bread. A whole lot of bread. Okay? So that helped cut our grocery bills dramatically. Especially in nowadays, when your common basic loaf from the grocery store is $5. Sometimes a lot more, especially if you want that nutritional, hearty, good fiber enriched in all the goodness of the bread and something that's got an actual texture and a crunch to it, that has flavor to it because it's got those whole wheat grains in it. It's going to cost you $5 to $8 at the grocery store. Now to buy a loaf of homemade bread, you're looking at a minimum of $8 to buy it from someone else. Handmade, you're looking at closer to $10 a loaf. That's for a single loaf. But however, if you learn how to make it yourself, you can make beautiful loaves of bread from your own kitchen with nothing more than just your own two hands and a baking pan that costs about $1.50. And you get more than one loaf. That's pretty amazing. And depending on all the ingredients in it, whether you make it a multi-grain or you keep it nice and simple split, you can make it for under $1 a loaf. Still, today, with all the ever-raising prices of all the things, I'll teach you in this mini course how to do that. I'll teach you how to do a basic simple bread, but I'll also teach you how you can, the sky's the limit on what you can add to that bread. So you can make it as fancy as you want, as ornate as you want. I'll teach you how to do the scoring. Now, I'll tell you straight up right here, I'm not a professional scorer, but yes, I do know how to. However, often when I score something, I'm not the best at it, but I do have the skills and the knowledge to do it. So I'll teach you what I know, and then I'll send you on your way to learn the art form for yourself. Because I'll tell you what, when I first started scoring bread, I caught right on. It was beautiful. It was amazing looking. As my children get a little older and they insist on helping me more and more, my little children's, my scoring has gone downhill dramatically. Yeah, I'll teach you how to do it though. I'll teach you how to score your bread, and then you have to learn the technique for yourself. And when you have those highs, great. Appreciate them, because you're going to have those lower days too. And that's okay, because we're all human. All human. So, I am not going to be charging over $200 for the mini course. I'm not. But this will be the only time that I offer it for this price. So you will be able to get in to the fall time mini bread baking course this weekend when I open the doors for enrollment. Stay tuned for the announcement. Shoot me a DM if you want in on this. You can get in for only $120 this year. $120 this year, and I will walk you through everything that you need to know. How to bake your bread. I will teach you one-on-one virtually in our pre-recorded course all the steps that you have to have, along with the history that goes along with it, on how to successfully bake your own homemade breads. And I'll teach you how to make 4 different yeast breads, as well as teaching you different baking soda breads. So a baking soda bread is a quick bread. So such as pumpkin bread and apple bread, a quick apple bread, not traditional apple bread, but we're going to be making traditional apple breads too. We're going to be bringing in the harvest with a beautiful wheat bundle, which is traditionally served at the harvest moon and at Thanksgiving in celebrating the harvest of the wheat that allows to keep the nation fed throughout the entire winter and the spring months ahead before the wheat is fully grown and ready to harvest again, feeding nations, families, and children. The Harvest Wheat Bundle is the most traditional celebrating bread in our history, because it took a community to reap the wheat, to bring it in. And it's amazing. It's amazing. So I'm going to teach you how to make pumpkin bread, pumpkin spice bread. I'm going to teach you how to make a harvest moon cornbread. I'm even going to teach you how to make some Navajo taco bread. So not only are you going to get bread, but I'm going to show you how to cook it up into something delicious as a full dinner. That's pretty yummy. Pretty yummy. And that's just the tip of it, guys. Just the tip of it. This is a mini course that you can complete in 2 to 3 weeks. And I'm going to drip it out to you just a little bit. So I don't want you getting overwhelmed. So I'm going to send you the first parts. And then the following week, I'll send you the next little bit. Honey, I want you to be proud of what you do. I want you to be proud of what you can finish and complete on your own. Because you're amazing. All right. I'm going to sign off for today. Remember, if you want to get into the first access for the enrollment for our Fall Times Mini Bread course, you asked for this course and I made it happen for you, and I'm excited to bring it to you. I've had so much fun recording this, and I'm very proud of what we've done, and I have to admit that it wouldn't have happened without you. It wouldn't have happened without your feedback and all of your encouragement, and I love you for that. Thank you. Thank you so much from the very bottom of depths of my heart. You may not realize that everything that I put out for you, I do because I am so damn grateful for you. Even if all you do is pop into one of my lives or you happen to watch one of my videos and you interact with it, I notice every single one of you. I really do. And I appreciate you because it's with your support through you purchasing goods from me, whether it's the jewelry or it's taking a bread course with me or just learning side by side with me. Just being here with me.
Mommy?
Y'all make the difference. You are the difference that makes milled artistry. And I thank you so deeply for being a part of my life. Because you never know when all it takes is just that one person to recognize you. That makes the whole difference in your life. And you know what? You do that for me. When I'm feeling down and gloom, you guys show up in the most incredible way for me on those days. And it keeps me going. And I am so humble. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. And it is my honor, it is my pleasure to have made this Fall Time Mini Bread course for you. And I can't wait to see you in enrollment this weekend. So shoot me a message, DM me if you want to get in on early access for enrollment. Limited enrollment is being taken for this course. Brand new course, just finished recording. I'm only opening the doors for a few people. And this is the lowest price I'll ever bring it to you at. Because I love you and I know how hard things are right now. And I want to make this as easy and accessible to you as I possibly can. Thank you for all of your support. From my home, my heart, to you. Thank you, my friend, for always supporting our small business and to being my biggest cheerleaders and always showing up for me when I need you. I love you. Enjoy the eclipse this weekend and the harvest moon. The eclipse is happening Saturday morning, and it's going to be amazing. A fire-burning ring eclipse in the morning sky with a harvest moon. Can you imagine? Can you imagine a better time to make that transition in your life and to truly step out to be the most amazing you and to start living the life that you've always wanted? Accepting and acknowledging your ancestors and your traditional roots, and filling your belly with some delicious baked goods that you crafted with nothing more than your own 2 hands. Honey, you've got this. Thank you so much, and we will see you tomorrow, okay?